So in my tier two, I have two teams, and it's just the Sixers and the Celtics. How about you?
Yeah, in my tier two, I actually have I have the Bucks and the Sixers. I faded the Bucks. Not so.
Oh,
Let me be
wow.
clear. This is not for the regular season. For the regular season, I think you can put any of the top five teams in any order, and I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever. But for the playoffs, I think it's Bucks, Sixers, Nets, Heat, Celtics.
Hold
Nets, Heat,
on.
Celtics are in the top three.
Hold on. What? That's crazy that you have the Bucks this
How many
low.
times do we have to see the Bucks and the Sixers flame out in the playoffs before we're like,
I mean, I have the Bucks. We can talk about the Bucks right now. I have the Bucks in my tier one, and I have them as the
okay,
second best team in this
no,
in
sure,
this conference.
okay,
I just think that you're underplaying. I think that the Drew Holiday thing is like I think it's a big deal. I think that
big
for the
deal.
amount, I think they gave up a lot to get him, but I think that the upgrade from Holiday to Bledsoe is like very big. I think it's huge. I have a couple stats here because I wanted
All
to touch
right,
on Drew Holiday when we were talking about the
go ahead,
Bucks. Did
go
a bit of
ahead.
a
You do your thing, and
comparison.
then I'll talk about the Bucks
Sure,
afterwards. Go
I
ahead.
did a bit of a comparison between Bledsoe and Drew Holiday because I really wanted to get in depth on, what the main difference is. And face value, if you kind of look at like both of their stats, you'd be like, oh, um, Bledsoe and Holiday are like pretty comparable. Like the Sixers kind of gave up a lot to get kind of the same player back, and I feel like that is kind of a consensus is that Drew Holiday might be a little bit better, but like how much better is he? But I think the biggest deal is that Drew Holiday is way more efficient. They have the same efficiency, but Drew Holiday is way better with way more minutes played. So first of all, um, Drew Holiday, uh, their effective field goal percentage and their true shooting percentages are very comparable. I think both of them are like hovering around like 50%. And Drew Holiday is actually a little bit better taking care of the ball. He's at a 14% turnover rate, whereas Bledsoe was at like a 16% turnover rate. But the reason why that number is a little bit deceiving is because Holiday had to handle the ball a lot with the Pelicans, and he ran the offense on that team. He was the focal point of that offense, especially with even though Ingram was their best scorer, Holiday was there to set it up. And I think what the Bucks lack is that when Giannis is the primary ball handler, he's still not very great at creating shots for other people. It's a lot of drive and kick. It's a lot of like the Celtics fame. I remember watching that Celtics Bucks series, and they just kind of put Tice in the middle, and Giannis doesn't have another option. You know what I'm saying? Like Giannis still lacks a mid-range jump shot that's consistent enough for people to be threatened the way that KD's threatened. So I think that the fact that you might just look at percentage and be like, oh, Bledsoe and Holiday, like Holiday's just a little bit better of a 3-point shooter, a little bit better of a mid-range shooter. While that is true, he was doing that in like with the ball in his hands primarily. Whereas Bledsoe's doing that with a lot of wide open shots because Giannis is getting double teamed a lot. So they're both shooting around league average from three, but Bledsoe's shooting league average from three on wide open threes, which is that's just not good. And Holiday's not getting those looks. He's going to be getting way better looks. And even besides that, I think Holiday's the most telling stat to me was Holiday and Bledsoe. I think like Bledsoe had a couple more free throws attempted in the last season, and they played actually the same exact games. They both played 61 games, but the most telling thing was that Holiday had way more 2-point shots attempted. He had almost 200 more 2-point shots. Actually, he did. He had like 172-point shots more attempted, which means that he's just taking way more layups. He's way more aggressive about it. And I think when you play with Giannis, you're going to get rewarded for that. Like good driving is going to get rewarded because Giannis demands so much attention. So I think they're probably gaining a lot more on offense or on defense. Not a lot more, but they're gaining more on defense. I think Holiday's longer. He can guard more players. And on offense, I think that he's actually a huge deal and will make a big impact and is a huge step up to Eric Bledsoe.
I think, I don't think there's any debate that Drew Holiday is a better player than Bledsoe, both defensively and offensively. Definitely a better player. And a Drew Holiday will help this team out for sure. Great defender, can handle the ball a little bit, has been in those spots before. You trust him a lot more than you trust Bledsoe. Where I'm with this team is I think Drew, Chris Middleton, and Giannis is a good big three. That's a good big three. That'll get you a top 4 seed in the East for sure. That can get you to the second round for sure. Now, when you get past that, the depth on this team took a big step back. They had George Hill last year, who was very important for them as a guy who can settle down the offense, as a guy who can dribble the ball, as a guy who can knock down three-point shots. He was the best the best percentage three-point shooter in the league last year. What they have off the bench now is, and I'll read you these guys. DJ Augustine, fine player, can do some things for you, did a lot of things for the Magic, fine player.
DJ Augustine is
Brian
just as good as George Hill. That's a fact. That's just a fact.
Brian Forbes. The Spurs gave up on him, didn't want to pay him. Pat Connaughton.
He's a good three-point shooter.
Pat Connaughton is the worst version of DiVincenzo.
That's true.
Bobby Portis, who the Knicks gave up on. DJ Wilson, and Torrey Craig. Do you trust any of those guys in a playoff series? I trust Augustine a little bit, but I don't trust anyone else in that.
Torrey Craig just played meaningful minutes for the Nuggets.
Torrey Craig is playing garbage time minutes for the Bucks now.
I mean, I think he's fine. I don't think he's great, but I think he's fine.
If you trust them, then that's fine. I don't trust any of those guys outside of DJ Augustine in a playoff series.
I think Bryn Forbes will hit open threes.
Frankly, I don't even trust DiVincenzo in a playoff series. And you know who I trust even less? Not on the offense. I think he'll be fine on offense. But on defense, Brook Lopez. How are they going to beat the Lakers? Or beat the Clippers? With Brook Lopez as their primary center. And if you
you just said that you don't think he's going to get out of the second round.
If you have Brook Lopez out there, then it's Portis, then it's DJ Wilson. I mean, if they went up against the Sixers with Embiid, you're going to have Lopez chasing around Embiid the whole time. You're going to have Lopez chasing around Bam Adebayo. Bam was destroying Lopez in that series. And while I think getting Drew helps you out, yeah, it does. But I don't think they address their biggest need, which is that Lopez is a below-average defender. They can hide him a little bit in the regular season with the system that they have. But Bud consistently gets out-coached in the playoffs, and he's not going to figure out a way to hide Lopez in any of these schemes, and they're going to destroy Lopez. So at some point, you're going to have to go Giannis at the 5, which is fine. That's a good lineup. But there's just not enough minutes there. Then you got to start playing, what are you going to do? You're going to throw out DJ Augustine for 35 minutes in a playoff game? I think this team, while they got better with Drew, they sacrificed a lot of depth. They traded away all their first-round picks. It could end up being 5 first-round picks, so they have basically nothing to trade with afterwards. So there's no avenue for this team to get better. And we saw what they were last year, Drew Holiday's a good player, but he's not a lead ball handler. And at the end of the game, it's going to be Giannis trying to ISO and do his thing. And it's going to look the same. It's going to look the same as it was before, and they're going to run out of offensive options. And Giannis is going to, he's a great player. He's a great player. He's an awesome player. But in the playoffs, he can't be the number one option for a team that's going to the finals. And I think
that's ridiculous. I
think that's
a crazy statement. That's a crazy.
They almost got swept by the Heat last year.
The Heat made the finals, so let's not talk about the Heat like they're an awful team. The Heat literally made the finals.
No, they're not, but they almost swept. They would have gotten swept.
Okay,
4-0.
listen.
That's bad. That's really bad.
They also had one of the worst playoff performers of the last 5 years in Eric Bledsoe. I think that Drew Holiday's not going to choke for you the way Eric Bledsoe has every single year. Am I concerned that Bud is still the head coach of this team? Of course I'm concerned. He doesn't make adjustments. But it doesn't take away from the fact that this team has the best player, just won MVP 2 years in a row and defensive player of the year. Giannis yeah, sure. I think in the playoffs, I think that we're not. I mean, you said that they can't beat the Lakers or the Clippers. You said that they wouldn't even make it out of the second round. That's crazy. You think that
they didn't last
Celtics?
Year. They didn't last
bubble,
year.
We don't know what we can take on the bubble. And also, they got rid of their third best player and replaced him with a much better third best player. So that's in itself is a huge deal.
I don't think they're better than the Heat. They proved that last year. I don't think they're better than the Nets. And I think the Celtics, when they're healthy, are a better team than the Bucks. Yeah.